I'm whooping his ass. Yeah. Yeah. Oh! Kiryu! You get the fuck back here. Yo, I love this. I love that so much. Honor, perseverance, conviction. These words are used to romanticize criminals known to the world only as Yakuza. But two men dared to dream past the label of gangster and successfully reach the threshold of legends. Kazuma Kiryu, Dragon of Dojima and the fourth chairman of the Tojo clan, and Ichiban Kasuga, the Dragon of Rock Bottom and the hero of Yokohama. These two are the titans of their respective stories, but that begs the question, who is the better written character? He swear and I'm jar, and it's our job to analyze their dialogue, plot lines, and traits to determine who would win. A depth battle. Kazuma Kiryu was an orphan under the care of Shintaro Kazama. Inspired by his generosity and success in life, Kiryu decided that he would follow in Kazama's footsteps to live the glamorous life he believed that Kazama was living. Kiryu would soon discover that Kazama was actually a Yakuza, and an officer of one of the biggest crime syndicates in the country, the Tojo clan. Undeterred by this revelation, Kiryu goes on to join the Tojo clan under the Dojima clan, up until the year 1988, where Kiryu is framed for murder and expelled from Yakuza life entirely. On his quest to clear his name, Kiryu meets all kinds of people that develop him into the man we know him as today. People that teach him the meaning of family, resiliency, and most importantly, strength. Throughout trials and tribulations, Kiryu surpasses everyone, claims the ultimate title, the Dragon of Dojima, and restores balance to the Seven Realms or something. I don't know, I haven't played the game in a while. Yakuza 0 builds Kiryu into the pseudo-Superman the rest of the world would know him as for the rest of his life. He begins as a naive child, still holding on to his dreams of becoming like his savior, but grows into a man who holds on to those ideals no matter how hard the world wants to put him down. But in the rest of the games, Yakuza 1 through 6, we see the villains of each game try to tear Kiryu off that throne, a throne he didn't even want in the first place. The Dragon of Dojima is a strange but fitting title for Kiryu. Even as he grows older, he never grows out of it, but while the name stays the same, the meaning behind it fades away. Kiryu earned that title by opposing the Dojima family, by clawing his way to the top and taking it by force. He isn't the dragon owned by Dojima, he is the dragon that Dojima created. Kiryu stole the crown in an act of rebellion to uphold his values and ideals. The fact that Kiryu was named the Dragon of Dojima was supposed to be an ironic symbol of the fact that he cannot be held down, he won't be told what to do, and he will fight for what he believes in. But as the memories fade, the only thing anyone remembers is that he is strong. It's not the story of a man fighting against the status quo. It is the legend of a violent gangster who destroyed anyone in his path. He isn't Kazuma Kiryu anymore. He is the Dragon of Dojima, a responsibility he's now willing to live up to. In Yakuza Kiwami, we see a slightly older Kiryu as he deals with the consequences of being the legend. 7 years after the events of Yakuza 0, Akira Nishikiyama, Kiryu's best friend, kills the patriarch of the Dojima clan. Kiryu ends up taking the fall and spends the next 10 years in prison. Upon his release, he returns to a bustling Kamurocho that is steeped in yet another mystery. This time, he is forced to not only face a transformed Kamurocho, but to also confront friends who have changed while he was locked away. The love of his life, Yumi Sawamura, has disappeared, leaving behind a child, Haruka, and Nishikiyama has become a family patriarch who is hunting down Haruka so he can promote himself to the top of the Tojo clan. Being the hard-boiled badass he is, Kiryu decides to protect Haruka, set things right with Nishiki, and save the Tojo clan from imploding in on itself. But none of that happens the way he wants it to. He ends up losing everyone he cares about. Kazama dies protecting Haruka. Yumi dies protecting him. Nishikiyama, although he deeply resented Kiryu, could never truly hate him. He gave up his life to save Kiryu, but to more importantly, take responsibility for all the horrible things he did in Kiryu's absence. Instead of the triumphant ending that he found at the end of Zero, Kiryu is left lamenting the choices he made that took away all the people he loved. He is appointed the fourth chairman of the Tojo clan and quickly abandons the position to live a happy life with Haruka. All up until it happens again, literally a year later. And then it happens again, and again, and again. Kiryu is a man defined by his convictions, but also by his sacrifices. Every new adventure sees him making new allies as well as losing old ones. But no matter how many times he gets knocked down, or tries to leave the Yakuza world for good, Kiryu always comes back for another ride, because he is a man who will always help those in need. But more than that, he is a man who will sacrifice anything to protect his family. And despite how much pain they put him through, the Tojo clan will always be his family.
Yuga Kiryu Kazuma ka?
ああ
beautiful eyes.
Yakuza 3 and 4 sees Kiryu owning and managing his own orphanage. Like his late father before him, he wants to take in kids who have nowhere else to turn to, and hopefully become a role model for them. Honestly, I love the Okinawa section of Yakuza 3. Kiryu felt like he was at home here. The kids felt like family. They all had intricate worries and dreams that Kiryu really paid attention to. Yakuza 3 as a whole was a huge departure from 1 and 2 writing-wise. 1 and 2 were more dramatic and interesting than your average beat-em-up game, but the story was still simple. 3 had a more intense feel than the previous 2, more character-driven than plot-driven. You could see that in the way that Kiryu treats the deaths in this installment. Rikiya Shimabukuro was a local Okinawan Yakuza that Kiryu helped out in the early parts of the game. He was a good person, but ultimately gave his life protecting Kiryu, much like Kazama and Yumi did before him. But unlike before, Kiryu is noticeably more devastated.
Rikiya. Oi! Rikiya! Oi! お前何勝手に死んでんだよ、おい! 俺許さねえぞ、おい！リキヤ！一応しろ、リキヤ！リキヤ！
He didn't cry when the love of his life died in his arms, but he's fully losing it when his friend of 2 years takes a bullet for him. What makes his death so impactful is that we can see the dam breaking. When he sees Rikiya die protecting him, he isn't screaming, "I can't lose you." He is screaming, "I can't lose you too." Kiryu is a man who has lost everything in a single night. He left the Yakuza life behind him to find happiness, but now it's being taken away from him again. All because he isn't strong enough to protect anybody. Rikiya's death is the final crack in Kiryu's fragile ego that pushes him over the edge.
待ってましたよ。4代目。
お前は相沢。どうしてお前がここに？
それが自分でもよくわかんないんすよ。
In Yakuza 5, we see exactly what Kiryu is willing to sacrifice to protect his family. Yakuza 5 starts out with Kiryu in a self-imposed exile. He abandons the orphanage because he is convinced that if he stays, he will only end up causing trouble for Haruka and the kids who live there because of his past ties to the Yakuza. 5 and 6 show a familiar facet of Kiryu pushed to the extreme. The legendary Yakuza has found a problem that he can't punch his way out of, so he does the next best thing. He takes on the role of martyr and isolates himself from the people he loves. Without a family to protect, Kiryu finds himself roaming the streets of Nagasugai until he is picked up by Yotaro Nakajima, the owner of a local taxi company. Finally free from the shackles of Yakuza life, Kiryu spends his days driving taxis like a normal human being. And his nights making noodles, for some reason. As his newfound peaceful days go on one after the other, Kiryu realizes something. Civilian life is crazy boring. Hey man, I'm right there with you, buddy. So when even the slightest amount of trouble shows up, Kiryu is the first one to throw hands. Along the way, Kiryu meets allies and enemies alike that reignite the fire he once had in his heart to fight for the ones he loves. With his heart set on one day seeing his kids again with a clear conscience, Kiryu sets off to fight against his greatest enemy yet, the Japanese penal system. And finally, we have Yakuza 6, Song of Life, which I can only assume was supposed to be the final game for the Dragon of Dojima, which it was technically. After the events of Yakuza 5, Kiryu spends 4 more years in jail to atone for his past so he can once again return to his orphanage as a free man from the Yakuza curse. Only to discover that Haruka's been missing for 3 years and finds her comatose in Kamurocho. By her side is a small child that I'm being told she made herself. Wow, that's definitely not doing things to my brain. Not like I've known this girl since she was 9 or anything. Definitely not feeling like the Matt Damon gif right now. So Kiryu does what any sane person would do in this situation. He beats the shit out of one of his closest allies, kidnaps a child, and runs off to find the father and make him take responsibility for bringing life into this world and running away like the fucking coward he is. You know, as you do. Just saying, but Kiryu might not be the hero on this one. Kiryu flees to Onomichi, home to the greatest mascot of all time, and the town where Haruka met the love of her life. Apparently. You know, Kiryu may be an ex-Yakuza, but he's basically also Haruka's dad. So I'm sure that once he finds out who Haruka chose to be the father of a child, he will treat him with all the kindness and respect he's owed, like the well-adjusted adult he is. I think he's taking this well. Kiryu would spend his final moments in Onomichi, dying a hero's death as he always wanted, protecting Haruka with his final breath as he did in life, finally laying to rest the legend of the Dragon of Dojima. But if you've played all the other games, you will know that most of them end with a Kiryu death scene fake out. It's almost a rite of passage at this point. But this time it's different, because this time, Kiryu isn't coming back. In one final act of sacrifice, Kiryu is relinquishing his own name to fake his death and stay in the shadows. To the world, Kazuma Kiryu is dead and buried, never to return. Until literally 3 years later. Again, listen, Kiryu still needs that paycheck. Kazuma Kiryu's story is one of upholding his convictions. He was an orphan who turned to the criminal world because he idolized the man who raised him. He was caught up in multiple gang wars over succession, where he barely survived every time. He's lost friends, family, even his own name. But no matter how many times he gets beaten down, he always gets up stronger than ever. Because men like Kiryu never stay down for long. He fights to protect the people he loves. Like it or not, that includes the Tojo clan as well. That's why he keeps coming back every game, because he can't just abandon his family. Kiryu has famously never killed anyone, except that time, and that other time, and that time too. That is because he doesn't want to lose any more of his family. He will oppose them until they give up their ambitions, because that's the only thing he knows how to do. That is what the dragon on his back represents, the ultimate obstacle, the mountain that cannot be surpassed. He lets them come at him with everything they've got, because once they see that even that's not enough, then they'll be ready to atone. And many of them choose to sacrifice themselves to do so, leaving Kiryu behind with one less brother in the world. That's the true legend of the Dragon of Dojima, the legacy of a man who always felt like he could have done more.
一番よ、お前子供の頃何になりたかった？
え？あーなんだっけな。
もったいぶるなよ。照れてんのか？
ガキの頃、俺勇者になりたかったな。
Ichiban Kasuga lives his life by this motto and this motto only. It is never too late to start over. Born in the soapland and raised by the numerous women who lived there, Ichiban calls all of Kamurocho his home. In spite of his unique family situation, he still holds immense love for all the people who took care of him, especially the man who raised him since birth, Jiro Kasuga, the man who gave him his last name. Being born in one of the gray areas of Japan, Ichiban was treated like trash every day. To escape that, he would spend his days inside, playing Dragon Quest alone in his room. Finally, a relatable main character, up until the day his foster father passes away. Soon after, Ichiban would quit school and start mugging whoever he can get his hands on to earn money, until he was caught by some Yakuza after messing up one of their friends. On the verge of death, he blurts out the name of a random Yakuza, Masumi Arakawa, in the hopes that he will scare them off, but it backfires, as they call him the real Arakawa, to prove that he was lying the whole time. To everyone's surprise, Arakawa actually shows up and cuts off his pinky in exchange for them letting Ichiban go. When Ichiban asks why he would go so far for a kid he just met, he responds with, From then on, Ichiban declares his undying loyalty to Masumi Arakawa, and after spending 100 days standing outside his office, Arakawa swears Ichiban in as one of his recruits. Ichiban was a terrible Yakuza. He didn't earn any money, he never shook anyone down who didn't deserve it, and even on the jobs where he did get money, he was one good sob story away from giving it right back. This is how he got the name the Dragon of Rock Bottom, because he was constantly broke. Not as glamorous as Kiryu's backstory, but definitely not as long, so there's that, I guess. The one thing he was good at was taking care of the boss's actual son, Masato Arakawa, who Ichiban formed a genuine, if not one-sided bond with. After years of dedication to the man who saved his life, Ichiban is rewarded with taking the fall for one of the captains of the Arakawa family, Joe Sawashiro, and spending the next 18 years of his life in prison. He literally turned himself in on his birthday of all days! After a few cutscenes and some immaculate bread physics, Ichiban yada-yadas his way out of 18 years of prison, only to find that no one from his family is waiting for him. The only person who did come to pick him up was some gruff 50-year-old Miami Vice reject with too much time on his hands. Koichi Adachi, played by Adachi Koichi, explains that the Tojo clan Ichiban knew is no more. Ichiban doesn't believe him until he finally confronts Masumi Arakawa and is shot and literally left for dead in a trash can. His body is then thrown out and makes his way all the way to Isesaki Ijincho, where he is resuscitated by his new best friend, Yu Nanba. Abandoned by his family and homeless in an unfamiliar city, Ichiban Kasuga must now rise up from the bottom if he ever wants to be the hero of his dreams. Through his boundless optimism and his never-say-die attitude, Ichiban Kasuga would go on to form his own battle party, take on the dark depths that society would rather look away from, and challenge the invisible discrimination that every one of his peers would face, living under the label of the Gray Areas, confronting the Great Wall of Ijincho, personally facilitating the great dissolution of the Tojo clan and Omi alliance, and saving Japan from the corrupt Ryo Aoki, all while managing his relationships with his party and handling a multi-million yen corporation. Ichiban Kasuga earns the title of the Hero of Yokohama through a relentless positivity and an undeniable charisma. Ichiban is able to rally so many people to his cause because he isn't ashamed of who he is. He keeps no secrets from his friends and is always honest about his feelings. He deeply cares about the people around him and makes friends fast. He is sort of the anti-Kiryu in that way, where Kiryu makes few but intense bonds with the people he saves through his dedication to his values. Ichiban forms lifelong friendships through his approachable nature and fierce belief in humanity. The people he likes, he trusts implicitly, no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you've done. And that is basically who Ichiban Kasuga is, the anti-Kiryu. When Yakuza 7 was announced and it was shown to be a JRPG, the biggest question on my mind was, why? Obviously to get a different audience interested in the game, of course. But from a story perspective, why such a sudden shift in game mechanics? The game will tell you it's because Ichiban is addicted to Dragon Quest, which is 100% true. But I believe it is also something even deeper than that Kiryu just doesn't possess. It's a love of life, an appreciation for all the tiny details that make a JRPG so much more fulfilling than just running around with a bat. The difference between Kiryu and Ichiban is that where Kiryu sees a bat, Ichiban sees a heroic sword. Where Kiryu sees a bulletproof vest, Ichiban sees heroic armor. Kiryu also runs around with armor and weapons in his game, but all it does is change his attack animations. But Ichiban allows it to change his whole perspective on fighting, because he chooses to live in a world where it can. That is the fundamental difference between Kiryu and Ichiban, the active choice to believe in a world that can be better.
ここから始まったんだ。俺とお前の人生が大きく動いた18年前のあの日、俺を捨てたあのホステスだ。ああ。堀の内の神さんになってたよ。都知事になる前、奴の警視総監就任パーティーに呼ばれてな。そこで知った。当然俺は素性がバレないよう装ったがな。そんな俺にあの女、なんて言ったと思う？あなたには持って生まれた知性と品性を感じます。だとさ笑えるだろ。裏で俺のことを下品だの怖いだの見下してたあいつがそんなこと言うなんてよ。どうだ、傑作だろ。若所詮そんなもんだったんだ。俺が名前を変え体を変え人を殺してまで追いかけた権力ってのは誰も本当の俺のことなんか見てくれちゃいなかった。まあ俺自身弱くて醜い自分が嫌で必死にもがいた結果がそうなったんだろうけどな。
Speaking of believing in humanity, let's talk about Ryo Aoki. It's no coincidence that Like a Dragon borrowed a lot of elements from Yakuza 1, a high-ranking Yakuza father figure, a tough but fair lieutenant character, and a close brother figure who strays from the path in the main character's absence. Masato Arakawa was like a brother to Ichiban. Being the boss's son, Ichiban was made to serve him morning, noon, and night. But on the night before Ichiban's arrest, Masato discovers that the girl he had been seeing, a local cabaret girl, was only using him for his money. She would take the gifts he would give her, but then badmouth him to her real partner, a high-ranking police captain. Here he learned that no matter how much money he had, which was a lot, he would always just be a two-bit thug in the eyes of society. So he would go off to fake his own death and continue life under a new alias, Ryo Aoki, a promising young governor. Using his connections to the Yakuza, he would covertly eliminate anyone in his way so he could attain power. He would go on to create Bleach Japan, an organization designed to destroy gray zones to make Japan clean again. He would amass more and more support until Ichiban defeated him and brought to light every lie he had ever told the public. In a truly heartbreaking scene that if you haven't seen today, you should definitely go watch again. We see Ichiban begging, pleading with his brother to turn himself in and start again from rock bottom, like he did, because he truly believes that it isn't too late to save him. Ryo Aoki shares a lot in common with Nishiki. They both feel inferior to their brother. Nishiki idolized Kiryu. He wanted to be just like him. But while Kiryu was in prison, Nishiki was constantly being compared to him. He wasn't strong enough to replace Kiryu and grew to resent him. Aoki, however, had the opposite problem. He was the golden child, who had everything from birth. What Masato hated about Ichiban wasn't his strength, but his ability to face life head-on. Because of the circumstances of his birth, he grew up with a chip on his shoulder. He thought he was a burden to his family. He thought that no one would love him as long as he was the son of a Yakuza. He wanted to erase his past and become someone worthy of love. Everything he's done, changing his body, killing all those people, destroying the gray zones, he did to destroy his old self and become someone worthy of love. All Kiryu could do for Nishiki was stop him. Kiryu defeated Nishiki out of respect for the brother he had lost along the way. But Ichiban understands his brother better than anyone. That's why no matter how much shit he has to push through, no matter how many people Masato has killed or thrown away, Ichiban will always reach out a hand to help him. Because Ichiban truly believes, from the bottom of his heart, that it is never too late to start over.
どん底まで行きゃ、あとは上しか行く道がねえ。どん底から見える景色ってな、真っ暗じゃねえ。地に足つけて上を見上げりゃ、希望で輝いてんだ。あんたの言う通りですよ、若。
お初にお目にかかります。手前小国と発しまするはジャパンの東京カムロ町。町のソープで産湯を使い、姓は春日、名は一番。人呼んで浜の英雄と発します。奇妙な縁に持ちまして、生き別れの母のため、はるばる海越え国越えてやってきましたホノルルシティ。以後お見知りおきの上、強行万端よろしくお頼み申します。
古いの知ってやがる。
おい、カンペ無視して好き勝手喋んなよ。タグ、せっかく作ったのに。
いいんじゃない？こっちの方がバズりそう。
さて、背中の竜魚が申します通り、私元極道の半端者、母を訪ねる道すがら、さしてがましくもハワイをご案内いたしましょう。名付けてジャパニーズヤクザ in ハワイ。
Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is the newest addition to the Like a Dragon series. It features Ichiban Kasuga on a mission to reform all the ex-Yakuza affected by the Great Dissolution. He has made a name for himself at Hello Work as the man who can get a job for anyone, no matter how bad their record is. But he only helps people who are willing to help themselves. He also goes on the most simultaneously wholesome and stressful first date of all time, with the only girl in his close-knit group of friends. This can only go well.
Let me ask you. Will you marry me?
Yeesh, abort, get out of there, Ichi! Let me tell you, I already knew this was gonna go horribly wrong when he was taking dating advice from Adachi and Nanba. These two haven't pulled a bitch they haven't paid for since Kiryu got out of jail. Sensing he has made many errors, he goes back to the bitchless duo to find out what he did wrong. This is where Adachi, in his infinite wisdom, mansplains all the things that Ichi did wrong, and why it would bother a modern woman like Sayako.
Is that finally it? You didn't add any more fuel to the fire.
I actually do think that's it. I'm pretty sure.
No, that was the last of it, I think.
I was kind of in a fugue state, so I don't really remember the rest.
You sure went out with a
But
So you said you'd help with the chores. Noble, but I doubt it earned any points. That more or less gives the impression you think chores are a woman's job.
okay.
And depending on the person, talking about having a kid can be pretty shaky territory too. Some couples can't even have kids, so it's not like marriage is all about starting a family.
And you topped it off with a planned visit to Arakawa's grave. That almost sounds like you want to marry her just to make the old man proud.
I was thinking that too.
Hey, come on. You're saying every single thing I said was wrong?
Inexplicably, yes. every single thing you said was horribly wrong.
Sucks. Seriously, what the hell do I do now?
Let's go to Hawaii. There is something deeply hilarious about Adachi, the 63-year-old single ex-cop, talking about what women want. Ichi then decides that he has to apologize for taking away her freedom as a modern woman. And Saeko...
Oh? Apologize for what?
Oh, she might actually be pissed. Says she just wants to be friends.
We're like partners in crime, you and me. I think a little romance might get in the way of everything.
Oh my god.
In that sense, I think it'd be better if we went back to being friends.
She put him in the party zone.
Don't worry, though. I'm with you to the very end.
Oh god. And then proceeds to ghost him for a full year. 1 year? What? Why did we even... That was a full year ago? Why did we sit through that? It's been 2 hours! Our love interest, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that fucking... And let me be clear. This is where the story actually begins. The only reason I told you all that other stuff is because I also had to sit through all that other stuff. Listen, I love Ichiban and Saeko as much as the next guy, but come on, let's get the plot going. Anyway, the real story begins when Ichiban is targeted by the worst, most evil, most heinous thing known to man. VTubers! Who put VTubers in my Yakuza? Honestly, I'd watch her. I'd have no idea what she's talking about, but I'd watch her. After some random asshole spreads misinformation on the internet, the bitchless trio lose their jobs and have to go back to old reliable, organized crime. Meeting up with Captain Sawashiro again, Ichiban learns that his birth mother is still alive in Hawaii, completely shattering the nuance of the last game. Ichiban promises Sawashiro that he will go meet his mother and deliver the ashes of Masumi Arakawa, Ichiban's real biological father, apparently. He sets off for Hawaii right away because honestly, he has nothing better to do. Immediately upon landing, he gets mugged by his taxi driver, attacked by the local Yakuza, and drugged and robbed by a girl he just met, all in the span of 24 hours. Yeah, we're in America now, bitch. Life hits you hard out here, brother. He gets arrested by some racially motivated cops, where he is then told he is gonna go to jail for crimes that he didn't even commit. Crimes they just have lying around apparently, that they need a fall guy for. Like, brother, do I need a bingo card or something? Everybody he's met has been so cartoonishly evil, it's almost like they're reading American stereotypes right off the wiki page. Ichiban escapes the fuzz and is now on the lam, surrounded by enemies and no one to turn to. Ichiban miraculously runs into the only person in the world who could possibly help him. Taichi Suzuki, what are you doing here? Kiryu's alive, and he's back, and he's really sweaty. Kiryu actually made an appearance in Yakuza 7 and had another standalone game right before Infinite Wealth. And both the cameo and the other game were not that interesting, or impactful for his character. The two things you need to know is that he's met Ichiban and has approved him of being the next protagonist, and that he got to see how the kids from Morning Glory are doing while he was gone. Spoiler, they're doing great, and he famously is not. From here on, Kiryu and Ichiban join forces to find Akane. They recruit Eric Tomizawa, the guy who mugged Ichiban literally the day before, and challenge the Barracudas, a psychotic faction of homeless people with ties to the criminal underground. But first, Kiryu has something that he feels he has to get off his chest.
お前らには言っておいた方がいいだろうな。俺はな、ガンなんだ。余命半年とそう言われてる。
That's right. Kazuma Kiryu is dying, and he's spending his last days on Earth helping people. Which is the most in-character thing he could possibly do. What could possibly be a more fitting end to the Dragon of Dojima than him putting his life on the line saving someone else? It makes so much sense it hurts. Ichiban insists that they drop everything and go find a doctor for Kiryu, but he refuses, saying that he's already tried and that there's no hope. Ichiban doesn't believe him, but acquiesces anyway. Now they're on a ticking clock. They try to finish the mission before Kiryu's body gives out, but it's too late. The gang is forced to split the party. Ichiban and friends stay in Hawaii to continue the mission, while Kiryu and company return to Japan to get him medical attention. This is where the true purpose of this game is finally revealed. 30 hours in. Listen, JRPGs are dumb sometimes. Nanba, a former nurse, hasn't given up on Kiryu yet. He believes that if Kiryu wanted to, there are ways to fight and stay alive. But the problem is that Kiryu doesn't want to. So instead of harping on the same point over and over again, Nanba tries a different approach. He wants Kiryu to experience the joys of being alive again, so he invites Sonhi and Saeko to help live it up in the town. This is, in my opinion, the best part of the game, because they clearly all respect Kiryu and want to put on airs around him so they can look cool. Especially Sonhi, who apparently has idolized him since she was a kid. But then as they spend time with him, they realize he's just another goofball. Kiryu's comedic timing in this game is unmatched. While playing as Kiryu, you travel through Ijincho and Kamurocho, reminiscing on past events and even interacting with characters from past sub-stories, all the way back to Yakuza 1. And Date even shows up to help Kiryu get in touch with characters that deeply affected his life. The real Taichi Suzuki, one of the orphans that Kiryu helped raise. Kaoru Sayama, Kiryu's love interest in Yakuza 2, a character both we, the audience, and Kiryu himself haven't seen in literal decades. Even Akiyama shows up at some point. Going through all of it is not mandatory, but every entry in the bucket list shows you how Kiryu is feeling while reminiscing about his past. It's clear that he cares deeply for everyone he's helped throughout his life. He remembers all their names, no matter how long it's been, remembers their problems, is proud to see them grow into better versions of themselves. Hearing them talk about the legacy of Kazuma Kiryu shows him that people don't just remember him as some violent gangster. The people who knew him genuinely cared for him. It's incredibly humbling for him. The only real issue I have with it is that because it is optional side content, it can't affect or be affected by the story. So at certain points in the story, it makes no sense for characters to still think that he's dead. In the main story, they blow up his spot on both live television and all over the internet. Anyone with a smartphone or working television should know that Kiryu is alive. It takes away some of the seriousness of certain scenes where the premise is we don't know where Kiryu is or if he's even alive, when the news literally says Kazuma Kiryu spotted in Ijincho alive and well. Regardless, it still provides amazing insight into what the world really thought about Kiryu. Anyway, while in Japan, Kiryu and company discovered that the Seiryu clan, the last remaining subsidiary of the Tojo clan, had been helping the organization that has been hunting Ichiban's mom. They are also the people who sent Ichiban to Hawaii in the first place. Coincidence? Kiryu doesn't seem to think so. He confronts Sawashiro about the Seiryu's intention. This scene is one of my favorite Kiryu scenes in Infinite Wealth because it subtly shows how much Kiryu cares about his fallen brethren. When the scene starts, Kiryu is already on edge, lamenting about how the Tojo clan headquarters have been taken over by some young upstarts. He instantly snaps at this guy every time he talks with uncharacteristically heated jabs. And when he sees Ebina on the throne, he won't even speak to him until he moves. But once Ebina does move, Kiryu himself takes a different seat. Because while Ebina had no right to claim that throne, Kiryu also has no right to sit there either. Kiryu gave up his position years ago, but that doesn't mean he's gonna let some punk who doesn't know or care about history sit there like he owns the place. Kiryu leaves that chair open to pay homage to the countless men who shed blood trying to claim that privilege. Sawashiro tells him that this was all part of some convoluted plan that I refuse to get into right now. Point is that Masataka Ebina, the current captain of the Seiryu clan and main antagonist of the game, was planning something big, and that stopping him meant destroying the Seiryu clan once and for all. Kiryu decides that he's gonna need help for when the dust settles, so he tries to enlist Daigo Dojima, Goro Majima, and Taiga Saejima to the cause. He tells them that he needs their help, but they refuse. Turns out that all three of them went into hiding because they spent too much money on super chats, and now they don't have the will to fight anymore. Kiryu calls them cowards for running away to play fishermen for the rest of their lives, and I dare to say he's wrong. After the fight with Daigo, Kiryu explains why he's been so stubborn about not sitting this fight out.
待ってください。桐生さんに時間が残されていないことは分かりました。でもだからってわざわざあんたが死にに行くことはないだろう。
逆だ、大悟。俺は少しほっとしてる。やっと死ねるんだってな。
何言ってんだあんた。
お前らの言う通り、俺も散々他人の人生を狂わせてきた。ただでさえヤクザだ。世間に顔向けできる生き方なんてしちゃいねえ。なのに俺ばかり生き残ってきた。だからヤクザの後始末は俺がやる。全部背負って死んでやるさ。
Kiryu is empty. He has been for a long time. Ever since he lost Nishiki, Yumi, and Kazama, he's been asking himself the same question ever since. Why me? Why am I the one who's still alive? All his life he's been called a legend for surviving whatever life throws at him, but all that means is that the people closest to him always leave him behind. In a perfect world, Yumi would be raising Haruka. Kazama would still be running his orphanage. Nishiki may have even led the Tojo clan, but they're all gone now, and only he remains. All the kindness Kiryu has shown everyone in his life afterward has been a way to pay it forward, to justify his own existence. Not that he doesn't genuinely care for everyone he's helped, but he also wouldn't be able to live with himself if he didn't live up to their legacies. In the epilogue of Like a Dragon Gaiden, we watch Kiryu receive a gift from Hanawa. That gift is a video of some of the children from Kiryu's orphanage visiting his grave. They have found a camera pointing at his grave and deduce that that must mean that Kiryu is still alive and watching over them. So they begin to tell him how everyone at the orphanage is doing, They tell him about the new jobs they have and how everyone is growing up to be strong just like him. While they are talking, we see Kiryu fully breaking down the hardest we've ever seen him cry. The kids he's raised, since some of them were in diapers, have grown up right before his eyes. And they're all saying that it's thanks to him that they got this chance at all. But that makes him realize something. All the kids grew up to be strong on their own, without him. All this time he thought he was protecting them, because everyone close to Kazuma Kiryu dies. But the more he ran from his family, the more alone he felt. In his face, you could see so many emotions. Happiness to see his kids, pride to see them doing well, but also sadness that he wasn't there to see it. Regret that he couldn't help them. Validation that he made the right choices, but also a deep and unbearable loneliness. So much information in such a short scene. It's so deeply sad, but also so deeply human.
あいつらとっくに自分の足で立って歩いてる。なのに俺が一人で寂しいって口に出すことさえできずにいた。子離れできてなかったのは俺だけだったんだな。
Kiryu doesn't want to die, but if he's going to anyway, he wants it to mean something. That's why he's so dead set on seeing this final mission through to the end, because he wants to shoulder the responsibilities of all the people that couldn't be here, because that's what it really means to be the legend. I consider Kiryu to be the real protagonist of Infinite Wealth, because the most dramatic elements of the story revolve around how Kiryu comes to terms with his own death. The life he's lived, the people who have come to know him, and the future he wants to build for when he's gone. But also because Ichiban's portion of the game is not that different from the last game. Ichiban in Hawaii is still looking for his mother, but now it's because she's caught up in the BBEG's evil plot. Along the way, he befriends almost everyone he comes in contact with, including the girl who drugged him, stole all his stuff, and left him naked on the beach. And if you're wondering, I still don't understand why she did that, and I don't forgive her either. Chitose Fujinomiya was supposed to betray Ichiban and friends, until she was swayed by his kindness and sincerity. She follows the party up until she reveals that the person who ordered her to betray them, and the person who was blackmailing her in the first place, was none other than Eiji Mitamura, a disabled man that Ichiban met on his flight to Hawaii. Chitose reveals that not only did she know who Ichi was the whole time, she was also the VTuber who ruined his life. Turns out she was working for Eiji, who himself was a former journalist, until the Arakawa family ruined his life by framing him for a crime he didn't commit. He eventually joined Bleach Japan, Ichiban's mortal enemies from the last game. He used Chitose's VTuber channel to write exposés on scandalous politicians and corporations, until it eventually devolved into slandering ex-Yakuza trying to change their lives. His obsession with Yakuza would lead him straight to the hero of Yokohama, and he would make it his mission to ruin Ichiban's life. But he didn't count on one thing. He didn't know anything about Ichiban Kasuga. Much like Namba and Ryo Aoki from the last adventure, Ichiban easily forgives them both for betraying him for no other reason than because he likes them. However, for Eiji, it's slightly different. Eiji was pretending to be disabled so he could endear himself to Ichiban. He wanted to remind Ichiban of the brother he lost so it would be easier to befriend him. And it worked, but not in the way he thought it would. Ichiban didn't see him as a friend, he saw him as a second chance. A chance to rewrite the ending he was given with their young master. He trusted Eiji because he truly enjoyed their time together. He didn't want to believe that that was a lie. When he discovered that Eiji was part of Bleach Japan, it only strengthened what he already knew. That Eiji was someone who had lost his way, just like his brother did all those years ago. Instead of hating Eiji for what he's done, he wants more than anything to help him atone for his sins, so they can both start over together, just like what he always wanted to do with the young master. Ebina is also like a second chance for Kiryu as well. Ebina is revealed to be the second son of Masumi Arakawa, making him Ichiban's half-brother. His mother was the daughter of Masumi Arakawa's patriarch. Their relationship was supposed to be set in stone, but Arakawa was already in love with Akane. Arakawa was forced to kill the enemy patriarch and send Akane into hiding, abandoning Ebina's mother without ever knowing she was even pregnant. Because she gave birth to the son of the man who killed their patriarch, the Hikawa family abandoned both Ebina and his mother. She tried to raise Ebina the best she could, but ended up succumbing to her illness by the time he reached middle school, mirroring the death of Ichiban's father at the same time. Her final wishes were for Ebina to forgive the Yakuza who left them both to die, but he couldn't accept that. From then on, he dedicated his life to the total extinction of anyone who would call themselves Yakuza. Kiryu feels personally responsible for Ebina and people like him who have been abused and abandoned by other Yakuza, because he once upon a time stood at the top of the Tojo clan as their fourth chairman. For a brief moment, he was the leader of the largest crime syndicate in the world, and if he had taken that responsibility more seriously, he could have made a difference in those people's lives. Like Nishiki, Ebina was also pushed over the edge after losing a loved one. And just like Nishiki, he was also aware that he was not the good guy in this game. One of the in-game theories as to why he didn't kill Sawashiro, even though he was fully capable of doing so, was because he wanted someone to stop him. When he was defeated by Kiryu later on, he begged Kiryu to kill him because no matter how many times he goes down, he's gonna come back and do it all over again until he's dead. Just before the final battles, we see the heroes of each story prepping their parties for one final dungeon. In true Ichiban Kasuga fashion, he leads the charge with a resounding speech.
一つはブライスをとっ捕まえて計画を中止させること。もう一つはこの島で進んでる核廃棄物処理計画の真相をつかむことだ。
3つ？あと1つはなんだよ。
全員無事に帰ること。これが一番肝心だ。頼むぜ。
But Kiryu stops the party, asking them if they're really ready to risk their lives to clean up his mistake, the literal exact opposite of Ichiban. And they respond with what I believe is the correct response: mild annoyance.
ちょっとさ、まだそういうこと言う？
ほんと、ちょっとショックなんだけど。
桐生さん、私らだって大解散に片足突っ込んでんだ。沢城のことも海老名のことも人事じゃない。私ら自身の問題なんだ。
何より友達一人こんな危ねえ戦いに行かせるわけないじゃない。
友達？
あんたが伝説のヤクザとかなんて一般人の俺には全然ピンとこないんだよ。俺にとって桐生さんはカラオケと酒が好きでやたら喧嘩が強くて、そんでだいぶ手のかかる友達だよ。それじゃあダメかい。あんたは一人で抱え込みすぎだって。困った時は頼ってくれよ。それがダチってもんだろ。
ああ、そうだったな。いつの間にか忘れてたみたいだ。
The allies that Ichiban made are paying it forward. Just like what Ichiban did for all of them, they want to be by Kiryu's side and save him from himself. Throughout the game, Nabe has been trying to convince Kiryu to think of himself by showing him that his life was worth living. But what really opened Kiryu's eyes was this: the people around him who could see him for who he really is. People who want to help him not because he's a legend or because he's sick, but because they genuinely love him. He's being reminded that he isn't some solemn, brooding superhero. He's just a man.
We're just innocent men.
Who needs help just like everyone else. When he apologizes to Ebina after the final battle, he is once again trying to shoulder all the blame for something out of his control. He knows that it's too late to apologize. He knows that no matter what he says, he can't change what has happened to Ebina or how he feels about it. But, much like the hero of Yokohama before him, he is begging his brother to, if not start over, then to at least be better. To at least give the Yakuza who hurt him the chance to atone for their sins. Maybe they can start over, maybe they can't, but they at least deserve the chance to try.
そのためには生きなきゃなんねえ。どんなクズでも生きることでしか人はやり直せねえんだ。俺たちは生きなきゃなんねえ。白でも黒でもない灰色の道を。だから海老名、頼む。お前も生きてやり直してくれ。あいつらを殺さないでやってくれ。頼む。俺が謝るから。そんなんじゃ許されねえことは分かっちゃえるが、俺が謝るから。すんなかった。
Ichiban inspires those around him, charging into battle with the friends he made by his side. He doesn't believe that it's ever too late to save someone, because he was raised better than to judge someone based on their past. Throughout his long, difficult life, Ichiban has had many hardships, many obstacles that got in his way, but he made it through with an honest smile and a sincere belief that everyone can be better.
謝らないでください、あかりさん。謝ることなんか一つもね。確かに辛いことはあったけどそれも大半は沢城の頭のいびりだ。そりゃ俺の人生は自分で選んだ始まり方じゃねえけど、 そんなの誰だって同じでしょ。茜さんは一生懸命生きようとした。そんでこうしてまた会えた。それでいいじゃないですか。それにあの町でいろんな人に助けられて、おやさんに出会えて、最高の仲間に恵まれて、俺は幸せ者なんですよ。だから茜さん、正直あなたが本当に俺の生みの親なのかどうかよくわかんねえけど、もし本当にそうならこれだけは言わせてください。俺を産んでくれてありがとうございます。
Kiryu fights because he wants to take on the sins of his family. He believes he owes it to the people he's lost to take on everyone's pain so that no one else has to. He thinks if he can live the rest of his life fighting against his own demons alone, he can finally find the answer to why he's still alive at the end, and find meaning in a glorious death. At the end of the day, Kiryu isn't some immortal dragon. He's a suicidal idiot who thinks that everything that goes wrong is somehow his fault. But just because he thinks he can take anything life throws at him, doesn't mean he should do it alone. Kiryu learns from Ichiban that it's okay to ask for help, to lean on others when it gets hard. For Ichiban, this was another adventure, another bad guy to beat, another girl to rescue. But for Kiryu, it's different. There will always be another bad guy. There will always be another girl to rescue, but he will not always be there. It's time for him to pass on the torch and live for himself, because it's never too late to start over.
お名前、フルネームで教えていただけますか。
桐生一馬だ。
So, who is the better protagonist? Which of these two is a better character at the end of the day? I would say it's complicated. Before you crucify me on Twitter or whatever for wasting an hour of your time, let me finish. Ichiban and Kiryu were designed to be opposites. Both of them have experienced loss, but have entirely different ways of coping with that. Kiryu isolates himself, pushing his friends away so he can fight without anyone but him getting hurt. Ichiban surrounds himself with allies, embracing his weaknesses and moving forward to save those around him. Kiryu is stronger, but Ichiban is supposed to be weak. Ichiban is charismatic, but Kiryu is supposed to be stoic. They're so different, it's hard to quantify what they would even be competing for. But that brings us back to the question I asked at the top of the show. Who is the better written character? And the answer to that is, if they're written well enough, there is no better written characters. The ultimate goal in writing characters in fiction is to create a character that feels so believable that they would be seen as a real person. Someone with wants, needs, goals, and most importantly, a personality that exists outside of their story. Once you have two characters like that, they become so close to human there is no way to objectively say who is a better character. It's all preference. But if we're just talking about personal preference, then my vote for the winner is Ichiban Kasuga. To me, Ichiban represents the qualities of a real-life hero. Someone who is honest and vulnerable, who cares deeply for his friends and has no barriers. Someone who approaches his enemies with the same sincerity he shows his family. Someone who isn't ashamed of who he is. Yes, he is a 42-year-old nerd who plays too much Dragon Quest. Yes, he is a homeless loser who digs under vending machines for cigarette butts and pennies. Yes, he was betrayed by his family and left for dead. But every time he got knocked down, he always climbed his way higher than where he was. Because once you've hit rock bottom, there's nowhere left to go but up. The winner of this depth battle is the hero of Yokohama. Kiryu may have lost the popular vote, but he's still one of my favorite video game MCs of all time. He is basically immortal, but deeply aware of his own flaws, so he feels he has to overcompensate with strength to cover up his own perceived failings. He is so human in a way that most video game characters aren't allowed to be. But also, that's not even how the people around him see him. Kiryu thinks of himself as a violent criminal, but to his family, he's a hero. To Date, he's his best friend. To Daigo, he is a father. To Haruka, he was always there to protect her. Not because he won every fight, but because he tried his best to help everyone he could along the way. He couldn't save everyone, but at least he was willing to try. He may not be able to save people with his words like a hero, but he can save them with his fists like a dragon.
He said it! He said it!
But even in his own games, he couldn't have done it alone. Just like the hero of Yokohama, the Dragon of Dojima has always had a rich cast of characters that have helped him through thick and thin. They both have amazing people who are willing to walk to hell and back to help them, and that's worth more than all the money in the world. Wait a second.